Hey, thanks for joining Newtown Macon for our session on the Paycheck Protection Program. It's good to have you, and hopefully we're going to be able to answer your questions. The Paycheck Protection Program is live right now, and we're going to go through today to try and help you determine if it's a program that you qualify for, and if it is, how you fill out an application. So if you follow along with us for the next hour or so, hopefully all your questions are going to be answered. You'll find out if you qualify, and you can even fill out the application alongside us. So if you leave this video going, you can follow along with the application and actually have your application finished by the time we finish this video. So to start off, I'm going to share some slides, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the basic qualifications are for the program. And I'm going to tell you what you can expect to learn throughout the rest of this session. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And the agenda for today's class is I'm going to tell you about the basic qualifications. We're going to learn how to apply. I'll review the attachments that you're going to need to have ahead of time to be able to finish the application. We'll fill out an application together, and then we'll review a list of local lenders who are participating in the program and some online options that everyone can use. We'll talk about the program, the restrictions, and what to expect, and we'll end with a little comparison with another program called the Employee Retention Credit, which you may or may not be familiar with. But as we've gone through coaching some of our businesses, I'm going to give you some examples, because it could be that the PPP is a better option. It could be that the ERC is a better option. It just depends on your particular situation. So we'll explore both of those and figure out which one's the right fit for you and your business. So let's start with the qualifications. So most of the applications, you have to wade through the whole application before you figure out whether you qualify or not. So what we've done is group these all together into one little presentation, and you just need to be able to answer yes to each of these questions. If you can answer yes to each of these questions on the next few slides, you qualify. And if you qualify, we think you should definitely apply. So the first question is, are you a small business? This means for-profit or nonprofit. So are you a small business in any industry other than financing, basically? So if you are a small business that is not a financial institution, you answer yes. And if you answer yes, you qualify. The next question is, do all of your employees live in the United States? As long as all of your employees live in the United States, you answer yes and you qualify. The next question is, were you in business on February 15th, 2020? For the PPP, your business has to have been functioning by February 15th of 2020. So if you answer yes, you're qualified. The next question is, were you actually doing business on February 15th, 2020? So you have to be able to prove that you were either paying salaries and payroll taxes or independent contractors on February 15th, 2020. So it's not enough for you to have registered your LLC and not actually have been doing business. You actually have to be able to prove that you were doing business by paying salaries or paying independent contractors. So as long as you're doing one or the other of those things on February 15th, you're qualified. You can answer yes, and we keep going. The next question is, does the current economic uncertainty make this loan necessary to support the ongoing operation of the business? You answer yes or no. There is some clarification around this question that the SBA issued last week. If you have other options to make payroll, if you, for instance, are a large publicly traded company, if you have unused lines of credit, if you have a huge amount of cash in the business, that probably is not going to meet the qualification for economic uncertainty. So you really need to have fundamental financial inabilities to meet your obligations that are caused by the crisis that are going to make you answer yes. For almost every business we've dealt with, they absolutely are experiencing financial hardships because of the crisis that are making the future of their business uncertain. So as long as that is true, you can answer yes and you qualify. The next question is, can you use the funds to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage interest payments, lease payments, and utility payments. Those are really the only 4 things that this program pays money for. So you have to be able to do one or more of these things to be able to qualify. As long as you can use the money to do one or more of those, you can answer yes and you qualify. The next question is, do you have 500 or fewer employees? And if the answer is yes, you qualify. Now, I put an asterisk here because there are some situations where institutions with more than 500 employees can qualify. If that's the case for you, if you have more than 500 employees but are still interested in this program, we'd recommend that you go to our website, newtownmacon.com/COVID-19 and register for an individual coaching session, because the limits on businesses with more than 500 employees are incredibly complicated. But for almost all of you, if you have 500 employees or fewer, you are in good shape. You answer yes and you qualify. The next few questions are a little more complicated. They involve the individual situations of the owners of the business. If there's only one owner of the business, if this is a sole proprietor or an LLC where you own 100% of the membership shares, this is really only talking about just you. But it's talking about any owner who has 20% or more of the business. So 100% would be more than 20%, obviously, right? So this would apply to the single owner. But in this case, no owner of 20% or more of the business can be subject to a current indictment, criminal information, arraignment, or other means by criminal charges in any jurisdiction, or presently incarcerated or on probation or parole. So we're going to get into if you've had any of those conditions previously in the next question. But in this question, this is just talking about the here and now. So for the here and now, no owners of the business are incarcerated, under probation, on parole, or have pending criminal charges. So as long as that is true, none of your owners have any of those things right now. You answer yes, and you're good to go. The next question is, within the last 5 years, no owners of 20% or more of the business have been convicted, pleaded guilty, pleaded nolo, placed on pretrial diversion, or placed on parole or probation. So again, if you're just the only owner, this only applies to you. If there are more owners, it applies to all of them who have 20% or more stake in the business. And it's only within the last 5 years. So we've dealt with plenty of business owners who have criminal convictions that are more than 5 years ago. As long as your probation ended 5 years ago or more, you're good. So this is only about the recent past. So we're just talking about the last 5 years. You've not been on parole or serving probation, or have entered a plea or been convicted of a crime. So as long as you can say that none of your owners are in that situation or have been in the last 5 years, you answer yes and you're good. The next question is, no owners of 20% or more of the business are currently suspended, debarred, or proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, or voluntarily excluded from participating in an SBA loan by any federal department or agency. We haven't run into any business to whom this applies yet, but because even though this program is running through traditional local lenders, it is an SBA program, so you have to be eligible for an SBA loan. So if you answer yes, we're good. The next question is about bankruptcy. So none of the owners of 20% or more of your business can currently be involved in bankruptcy proceedings. Previous bankruptcies are fine. This is talking about right here, right now. So to be eligible for the PPP, none of your owners can currently be involved in bankruptcy proceedings. So as long as none of your owners aren't currently in bankruptcy, the answer is yes, and you're good. The next one is none of the owners of your business can currently be delinquent on any federal SBA loans, and no owner can have defaulted and caused a loss to the government within the last 7 years. So as long as none of your owners are currently in default or have caused a loss to the government within the last 7 years, you answer yes, and we're good. Next qualification is that none of the owners of 20% or more of your business are currently delinquent on any federal SBA loans for any other business they own or control. So if you do have outside investors who own 20% or more of your business, you're going to need to check with them, because a lot of times angel investors have lots of businesses that they're invested in. And you're going to want to confirm ahead of time that none of the businesses that they're invested in are delinquent on any federal SBA loans. So getting to the end of this checklist, I just want to check in with everybody. Did everyone answer yes to all those questions? If you did, that means you're qualified. So that's it. Those are the set of qualifications. Now, when we go into the actual application, we're going to start certifying that each of those things are true. So there are questions that specifically reference each of those things. But getting to this point in the video, if you answer yes to all those questions, you qualify, and you probably need to complete an application. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what you're going to need to complete that application. To make this go quickly, the best thing that you can do is go ahead and gather these attachments ahead of time. So the first thing you're going to have is payroll statements. The Paycheck Protection Program exists for you to be able to fund your payroll. So they're going to want to confirm your previous payroll. So if you're in business in all of 2019, you're going to need all of your payroll statements for 2019. If your business started in 2019, you're going to need the payroll statements from whatever date you started until the end of the year. If you have an outside payroll preparation company that works for you to do your payroll, it should be very easy to log into your account and download the entire year. If you prepare them yourself, you ought to also have records of those. So you're going to go ahead and gather, download, and have digital files on your computer for all your payroll statements for 2019. The next thing you're going to need is your proof of your payroll taxes. So it depends on what type of business you are, which form you use, but if you use Form 941, you're going to need all 4 quarters for 2019, or you're going to need your Form 940 or 944 that shows where you paid your payroll taxes for 2019. You're also going to need your bank statements. You'll need the current month. So we're in April right now, almost at the end. So you're going to need the month of April, and you're going to need 6 months prior. So you can go ahead and log into your business bank account and get those statements downloaded. The next thing you're going to have are tax returns. You have to have filed at least 2018. We know most businesses have not filed 2019, and that's fine. You have to have the most recent year you filed, and it can be no earlier than 2018. So as long as you've got copies of your 2018 taxes, that's fine. If you have filed 2019, that's what they want. So the most recent taxes that you filed, at least 2018. Another couple quirky things you're going to want to have ahead of time. This can really slow you down in the application if you don't have these done already. You're going to want a color copy of the front and back of your driver's license. So you can go ahead and get that on your phone, email it to yourself, have it saved on your desktop, ready to upload from the computer. You're also going to need a color copy of a voided business check. So you're going to write in big Sharpie marker, void on the front of the check, but the account and routing numbers need to be visible on the bottom, so you don't want to obscure those. But you're going to need a color copy of a voided business check to upload. Again, same thing. You can take a picture on your phone or go to your office and scan it. And then if any of these other IRS forms apply to you or your business, you're going to want to go ahead and gather them and have them ready to upload as well. So now we're going to talk a little bit about applying for the PPP. Your best bet is if the bank that you use for your business is offering PPP loans. So the first thing you want to do is to call your banker or visit your bank's website or Google your bank and PPP and find out if they're continuing to accept applications for this program. If they are, your best bet is to apply through that institution. But we're going to tell you about a lot of online lenders who will accept applications from absolutely anyone who qualifies for the program. And that's the application that we're going to walk through, is one of those universal applications. So here is the link. It is fundera.com/PPP. We're gonna go to this website together and start filling out a sample application. Before we do that, though, I want to walk you through how you can get to this information after this call is over. So Newtown-Macon is keeping a resource guide on our website. It's newtownmacon.com/COVID-19. So if you type in that web address, you're going to pull up our COVID-19 resource page. And if you scroll down, there is a red button that links you to our resource guide. We're updating this resource guide every day with the latest information and links and everything you need to know. So we're going to go to the link to support for small business owners, and we're going to scroll down until we find the section on Paycheck Protection Program. So here it is, the Paycheck Protection Program. And here's a link to the slides that we're reviewing right now. Here's a link to a local guide with instructions on how to apply. And here's a link for the step-by-step instructions for Fundera. So if you get lost after this webinar is over, you can always go to this resource guide and pull up the same information to be able to complete the application on Fundera. So I'm going to go ahead and open both these links, the local lenders link and the Fundera link. So here's how this works. There's a list of the local banks that we know are participating in the program. And the first page is a summary of those banks with links to their current applications. Some of them you actually have to fill out these things in print and then email them in. So there are instructions there. Some of them you actually have to contact the banker to get internal instructions about how to apply. But this should help you navigate the process for your financial institution. And like I said, we've got links to a lot of online lenders who will accept an application from anybody. So here is Fundera. This is the application we're going to fill out together. We're going to go to this link, which is fundera.com/PPP. And when you go to that link, you enter your name and email address, and it pulls up the first page of the application, which is here. There are only 3 pages. And honestly, if you have the attachments gathered ahead of time, this is only going to take you about 15 minutes to complete. So your first step is to enter the legal organization type for your business. So in this case, I'm going to fill it out for Newtown Macon, and we are a nonprofit corporation, a 501c3, but there are options for LLC, S Corp, C Corp. Now, on our step-by-step guide, I've got some helpful links just in case you don't remember how your business is organized. And don't be embarrassed. There's a next section that you're definitely not going to remember. So right here, I have a link to the Secretary of State's website for the state of Georgia. And if you're forgetting anything about the basic information for your business, if you just enter your business's name into the search function, you're going to be able to pull up all of this. So there are 3 things that we can use on this page to start our application. Number 1 is the legal name of the business. You want to make sure you get all of your punctuation exactly correct. So in this case, it's Newtown Macon, INC, period. The next thing that's helpful on this page is it tells you the business type. So right here, we're able to see that Newtown Macon Inc. is a domestic nonprofit corporation. So that helps us pick the legal organization type we need in that first drop down. And then the next thing is the date that the business was formed. We're going to need that in just a second. So in this case, it's April 16th, 1997. So I'm going to flip back to the application and just confirm the business type again. That is a nonprofit corporation, 501c3. We just confirmed that from looking at the Secretary of State's website. The legal name, let's look at that. That's right, Newtown Macon, INC, period. The next is if you have a registered trade name, you're going to need to enter it there, or if you've registered doing business as. If not, you can leave that blank. The next box is that date of incorporation. So again, I'm looking back to the Secretary of State's website, 4/16/1997. That is correct. And the next question is whether our business is seasonal. So this is not a seasonal business. You can select yes or no there. This next industry description is a little bit complicated. So what they're looking for here is the NAICS code that describes your business. Since you have to have your tax returns to apply, the NAICS code is going to be listed on your tax return, but on our step-by-step guide, I have given you a link to the search function on the NAICS website, and you can go there and you can search for your own code. So for Newtown-Macon, we're a community development agency. So I'm just going to search by that keyword and see if we can find NAICS code that applies to us. And here we go, Administration of Urban Planning and Community and Rural Development. That sounds exactly right. So in this specific box on Fundera's app, you cannot just enter the code. You have to start entering the description and it will pull it up. So in this case, I'm going to look for Administration of Urban, there we go, Urban Planning and Community and Rural Development. But you can search for your industry by using that search function at NAICS and get it entered there. We are incorporated in the state of Georgia, and we've entered our address. So the next thing that we have to enter is our employee identification number. And you can, again, find that on your tax return, or you can there's a link on the step-by-step guide to the IRS's instruction for finding your EIN if it's lost. You enter your phone number and the primary contact name and email address for the business. And the next section is where you enter your actual payroll information for 2019. So there are some helpful instructions right here in the application itself. But in this section, and also if you roll over the question marks, you're going to find more helpful information. Like in this case, it tells you exactly which boxes to find this information in your payroll tax filings. But the first section is you're going to enter the entirety of your wages and tips for 2019. And then you're going to enter how much unemployment tax was paid on those wages and tips, what the employer's cost of health benefits for those employees was, what the employer's cost of retirement benefits was, and what state and local taxes you had to pay based on those wages and tips. So you're going to enter each of those each of those numbers in the relevant box. And it's entirely possible, let's say this business provides salaries but does not have any of the benefits included. If some of these boxes don't apply to you, just enter 0. Now the next box is where you calculate your average monthly payroll. And the only trick to this, so basically you're going to add up each of these boxes and divide by 12. The only catch to that is if you have any employees who make more than $100,000, you have to reduce their salary to $100,000 before you average it together. That's really the only trick. So you're going to reduce any employee who makes more than 100 grand down to 100 grand, and then add them all together and divide by 12. So in this case, if our wages and tips are $600,000 and we don't have any other expenses in these other boxes, that is $50,000 per month. The next question is if the applicant's received an economic injury disaster loan. If you have gotten your EIDL advance already, or if you've already gotten the advance and a loan, you're going to have to enter yes here, and your loan amount is going to be reduced by whatever the amount of your advance is ahead of time. So in this case, we have received an EIDL. We got it on the 22nd of April, and all we got was the advance amount, and it was for $10,000. So I've entered that here. We did not get a loan, so there's no loan term, there's no loan purpose, and we are going to use that EIDL for payroll. So you have to enter that question there. Now, if you have applied for an EIDL but not received it, you can answer no and just keep going. So the next box is the amount of loan you are seeking. The amount of loan you're seeking is automatic. It's based on your average monthly payroll. It's your average monthly payroll times 2.5. So you can't just enter any any amount you want to here. There are, again, instructions if you roll over the question mark. So we're going to do 50,000 times 2.5, which is $125,000. So the next section is you have to enter how you plan to use your Paycheck Protection Program loan. Let me just tell you at the outset, the only way to get forgiveness on this loan, which is what all of us want, right? We all want free money. So the only way to do that is to spend 75% of your loan on payroll costs and the remaining 25% on one of these other eligible expenses. And these are the only eligible expenses, right? So if you end up not equaling your total amount of your loan here with these eligible expenses, then a portion of your loan will likely not be forgiven. So in this case, if we're getting a $125,000 loan, 75% of that amount is $93,750. So that's the amount we have to spend on payroll costs. And the remaining amount can be spent on one of these other categories. So let's just put that we'll spend all of the remaining 25% on rent, and we'll not spend any of it on any of these other things. So we're spending 25% of our loan on one of the other eligible expenses, and we're spending 75% of our loan on payroll costs. That ensures that we're going to be eligible for forgiveness of all of the loan. So after you've decided how you're going to spend your Paycheck Protection Program loan on eligible expenses to ensure that you get it forgiven, you enter the number of employees that the company has, and this does require you to enter full-time equivalents. So if you have 10 full-time people and then you've got 2 people who work 20 hours a week each, you have to add together all the hours that hourly people work and divide by 40 to enter the number of actual full-time equivalents. So in this case, that's what we have. We have 10 full-time people and we have 2 people who work 20 hours a week. So that equals 11 full-time employees. Again, I mentioned earlier that if you have any employees who make more than $100,000, you've got to reduce those. And so they're just asking a second time here to make sure you remember to do that when you calculated your payroll. Because if you didn't and you overestimated the loan that you're eligible for, you're going to have to pay that back. The next section deals with the owners of the business. You have to enter someone in this section. So even though nonprofits are eligible for this program and nonprofits don't have any owners, you can't leave this blank. So for Newtown Macon, I've entered my name as the chief executive, and another nonprofit should do the same thing. The only thing you're going to do if it's a nonprofit is you're going to enter the ownership percentage as 0. Otherwise, if you're an LLC and you have one owner who owns all the membership shares, you're going to set that at 100%. You have to enter this section for every owner who has 20% or more of your business. So the things you're going to need if there's more than one owner is you're going to need the date of birth, and you're going to need the social security number and immigration status for every one of your owners of 20% or more. If it's only you, that's super easy. You just need your personal information. You're going to enter it here along with your home address, and then you're going to check no, there are no more owners. But if there are more owners who own 20% or more of business, you're going to click yes, and it'll give you another section of the same fields to enter, and you can do that as many times as you need to. The last of this page are all those questions we went through on the PowerPoint slide. So you've already answered these. You're just going to want to read those questions and click the appropriate box. Unfortunately, in their form, so I changed all ours where the right answer was yes all the time. This one moves back and forth between yes and no. So you're going to need to read them all and click the right answer, and then in some cases enter your initials to apply. So I'm going to click continue. It's going to check and see if I entered all the boxes correctly, and I did in this case. And so the second page is additional certifications. Again, going back to those slides that we read through, you type your name in twice and your title and click continue. And that's about it. The last thing we have to do is upload all those documents that we compiled earlier. So this one's asking for the payroll statements and the bank statements. So you're going to click upload, navigate to that file on your computer, and upload it. And one thing to keep in mind here is the volume of these applications is overwhelming. So you really want to make sure when you take the pictures of your driver's license front and back that you label that file in your desktop and that you put it in the right place. The last thing you want is to have gotten through this whole application, gather all your documents, and then cause a delay when your lender actually reviews your file because you uploaded the wrong file or the wrong file name into the wrong place. So you want to be really careful here to make sure you get all the files that are requested uploaded into the right places. So once you've got those files uploaded, you click I agree and your application is done. So I've got one question in the text box. The question is, what if I work for myself and I don't have any payroll statements or payroll withdrawals? That's a great question. And many of our businesses that are sole proprietors, that's a situation that's going to apply. What you're going to want to do more than likely is go back and pull your Schedule C from the last tax year, which is going to document, basically that form segregates everything that didn't get used from your business income for business expenses. And so those are considered your owner draws, whether you actually transferred them out or not. So that's probably the easiest way to establish what your net compensation was as a business owner for the last tax year. But there are almost every business owner handles their own compensation differently. It may be that you're making transfers out of the business account into your personal account for personal use. And so the way you could document your annual salary is by getting copies of the bank statements again and highlighting the areas where you made transfers to your personal account for personal use. Does anybody have any other questions so far? Great. Well, we'll keep going and talk a little bit more about the specifics of the program. I'm going to flip back to my slides and tell you a little bit more about the general qualifications and what you should expect. So the Paycheck Protection Program was established by the SBA, but it's being run by local 7A lenders, typically banks, but some online lenders like Fundera we just talked about, and PayPal, Square, Cabbage, all those are listed in our resource guide. And basically every small business that has 500 employees or fewer are eligible to apply. So the way the program was designed is it's intended to help you cover a 10-week period. So 10 weeks is 2.5 months, that 2.5 number that we talked about earlier. So your total payroll cost times 2.5 equals 10 weeks. So that's how they came up with the 2.5 number, is to cover 10 weeks to help you continue paying your employees. The loan amount is automatic. Like we said earlier, it's your average monthly staffing expenses times 2.5 up to a total of $10 million. $10 million is the maximum loan. And so that you can't borrow more or less. The loan amounts are automatically set based on your actual payroll costs. Now, what we're all aiming for here is to get 100% of this loan forgiven. Now, to do that, you have to do some really specific stuff. Number one, you have to rehire everyone who was working for you before the crisis. And you have to do that for an 8-week period. That starts as soon as you get the loan. So that's the first big thing to know. And like we answered the question earlier in the chat, owner draws are treated as eligible expenses. So once you establish how you compensated yourself last year, you are able to continue doing that with these funds over the covered 8-week period. So if you've laid off workers, which is entirely possible, you can rehire them, but you have to rehire them for the 8 weeks as soon as you get the money. Now, we've run into this question several times because the latest date for rehiring your employees is June 30th. So if you wait until June to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan, and you rehire people before, and you get your loan on June 29th, your 8 weeks starts June 29th, and you qualify for this forgiveness. But June 30th is the latest date. But for forgiveness, your clock starts ticking as soon as you take the money. So the only way to wait till June 30 and get your forgiveness is if you get the loan on or around June 30th. If you get the loan earlier, then your clock starts ticking earlier for forgiveness. And that's just the way it is. Last time this program was funded, it only lasted about 2 weeks. So it's extremely unlikely you're going to be able to just wait and apply in June and be able to get this money. So that's one thing you've really got to think about, that if this takes a week or two to process, you're looking at a week or two. In a week or two, when you get this loan, you're going to need to rehire everyone who is working for you. Now, you can lower wages 25%. So even though you have to hire everyone back, you can pay them 75% of their previous salary, but no less than that, and be forgiven. If you reduce wages more than that, there'll be some of this loan you have to pay back. And for any amount that you is not forgiven and you do have to pay back, the repayment terms are going to be 2 years at a 1% interest rate based on advice from the SBA. But you want to communicate with your individual lender to confirm those terms before you close. So some other features: you don't have to provide collateral or a guarantee. You can defer payments for up to 6 months if there is a portion you have to pay back. There's no closing fee or prepayment penalties. We have really emphasized this to a lot of people. At least for now, even if you have questions about how you're going to use it, you should apply, because if it turns out that something changes and you don't want it, don't need it, can't use it in a way that'll get you forgiveness, you can always pay it back, and there's no fee that incurred to you, and there's no prepayment penalty. And then one more time, just to emphasize that 75% of the loan has got to go to payroll expenses, and then 25% can go to one of 3 other things, which is rent, mortgage interest, or utility costs. And you can get both the PPP and the EIDL, but you can't get forgiven on both counts. So banks are going through incredible challenges trying to process these applications. First of all, they never process this volume of loans. So many have their whole staffs, not just their lending staff, processing these applications. They have to use their own capital to fund these loans. There's not a new source of federal money. So whatever money that banks have to do the lending they regularly do, that's what they're using to fund these loans. So that's one of the challenges. They have to pull loan numbers through an SBA computer system, which can be a challenge. And many of them are still waiting on guidance around some of the legal questions. There's also an issue that banks are typically not making as much money on these loans as they do on traditional loans. So when you go back and look and think they're using the same pot of money and they can either do the PPPs or the traditional loans, they're more likely to want to keep their money to do the loans they used to be able to do, because they're going to make more money that way. So that's why for a lot of financial institutions, they are only doing these loans for their own clients. Now, I wanted to run through really quickly the employee retention credit, which is an alternative to the Paycheck Protection Program. So for this program, you have to be a business, a nonprofit or a for-profit, but also your revenues have to have dropped 50%, or you have to have been partially or fully ordered to close. So a restaurant or a bar, or in the case of Newtown, we were forced to shut down our co-working space. So any of those kinds of conditions that are a partial or full shutdown. A restaurant may still be able to do takeout, but their dining room's closed. That definitely qualifies as a partial shutdown. So if both those things apply, the employee retention credit offers a tax credit that is half the wages of your employee, up to $5,000. And it's paid through a tax credit. And the way you do it is the withholding you make from the paychecks you give to your staff that would go to our federal payroll taxes. You're able to just move that you're able to move that into your operating account up to half the cost of the actual wages. Now, in comparing that to the PPP covers 100% of wages for 2.5 months, and it's paid for through a forgivable loan, but you have to obtain it from a private 7A lender. So there's a whole application process on the PPP versus the ERC, which you're able to do through your own tax withholdings. So the PPP requires you to rehire everyone for the 8 weeks immediately following getting the money, and you have to pay them at least 75% of their previous wages. And 75% of your award must be used on these payroll costs. The ERC funds half your employees' wages during any quarter where you meet one of the following criteria, which is 50% of your previous revenue or partially or fully ordered to close. And the maximum credit's $5,000 for all quarters. So if these conditions apply in more than one quarter, that's fine, but the maximum credit is still $5,000. So you can convert the payroll taxes to operating funds to pay this credit, or there's a special form 7200, where they will actually refund you and send cash to make up the difference if your withholdings aren't enough. But you can only get either the PPP or the ERC. It's one or the other. So our first example is a nonprofit organization with a $600,000 payroll and 10 employees. It was partially closed, and all employees are continuing to work. There haven't been any furloughs yet. So for the ERC, the average employee compensation per quarter is $15,000. And so half of those wages would be $7,500. But the max credit of $5,000 applies. So the ERC would provide a benefit of 10 employees times $5,000 equals a $50,000 benefit. And the PPP, on the other hand, is 2.5 times payroll, which is $125,000. Now you got to subtract the EIDL of 10 grand, but still there's a benefit of 115. So in this case, the PPP would be a better option for this business. So those are some basics of the employee retention credit and the Paycheck Protection Program. And it's just going to vary based on your individual business and whether you have people laid off or not as to which one's going to be a better option for you. Again, you can go to newtownmacon.com/COVID-19 to register for an individual coaching session if you've got questions. So I'm going to run through the last questions that we've got in the chat box. I've got a question that says, do you include 1099 folks? So people that you're paying as independent contractors who do work for your business, you cannot include those people in your Paycheck Protection Program application. This is to only cover your payroll, actual employees who are working for you. Legally, independent contractors are considered their own business, so they're not going to be people who are included in your calculation of payroll. The next question, I was denied from my bank for PPP because of the cash advance from EIDL. What can I do? So this is a great example of where the employee retention credit comes in. Let's say you're a business who has a lot of employees who work very few hours. So you were able to get the full $10,000 from the advance for your SBA. But your payroll costs are so low that your Paycheck Protection Program calculation was also $10,000. Well, in that case, the EIDL advance is much less restrictive. There are many more qualifying uses for that. So you should definitely keep the EIDL. You should not do the PPP, and you should consider using the employee retention credit when you do hire everyone back to work to help provide an additional benefit. Now, the next question is, if I rehire my employees because I got PPP, will they still be eligible for partial claim unemployment? They're still not able to work as much as they did beforehand. Yes, our belief is that if your employees are working reduced hours or reduced benefits, remember I said earlier that you've only got to pay your employees 75% of what they were making beforehand. So if they go ahead and file their pandemic unemployment applications, and you file the partial unemployment application each week to show their reduction in hours, they should be eligible for the $600 pandemic unemployment portion. As long as that goes and as long as their hours are reduced. The next question was, so payroll has to be 75% or you don't qualify? And that is true, yes. You have to hire everyone back and you have to pay them at least 75% of what they were making beforehand to qualify for forgiveness. Again, you can do different things with the money. you're just going to have to pay it back over 2 years at 1% interest if you don't do that. And the last question is asking, I was denied by my bank for PPP. Should I consider applying for an online lender? That depends on your bank's reason for the denial. If you were denied because of one of these qualifications that we went through in the slides, then you don't qualify for the program. It's not going to matter who you apply for. But some banks have come up with some really restrictive criteria, like we're only going to put in an application for you if you've got a line of credit and a business bank account and blah, 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 blah. If they denied you because of an internal regulation like that, yes, absolutely, you should apply with a different online lender. So I think we've gotten to the end of all the questions. I'm glad y'all joined us for this. Again, I want to point you to newtownmacon.com/COVID-19. That's where you're going to find the latest information in our resource guide. If there are any changes to these programs, we're going to have the latest information there. And like I showed you earlier, you're going to be able to reference the slides from this presentation. You'll be able to reference the step-by-step guide for Fundera. And you'll be able to see an updated list of the lenders that we know about locally and online who are still processing these applications. So I appreciate y'all joining us. We look forward to helping you more with any other questions you have, and we look forward to y'all all reopening as soon as it's safe and possible. And we appreciate everything you're doing as small business owners to get through this time to make sure that we have you on the other side. Thank y'all and have a great day.